Are you ready to anchor into your multi-dimensional wisdom? Within you lies access to higher dimensional frequencies, galactic wisdom, and awareness beyond this current 3D experience. I'm Bianca, a galactic channel and multi-dimensional mentor. And what I know is that this journey isn't about choosing between worlds. It's not about transcendence, but instead learning to embody these frequencies that activate your multi-dimensional self, supporting both your personal evolution and the collective shift beyond 3D. Welcome to Evolving Beyond 3D, where we explore what it means to be fully multi-dimensional right here, right now. Hello and welcome to Evolving Beyond 3D. I'm your host, Bianca, and I'm going to be speaking in this episode about my own personal galactic awakening. But before I do that, I just want to speak about who I am and let you know a little bit more about my journey. So I love to introduce myself as multidimensional. But in fact, it's not just me. We're all multidimensional. We all have access to so many gifts and senses and skills that perhaps we just don't realize. And for me, this has definitely been a real journey. So I can take you on that journey and share with you my story. But what I do now and why I'm so passionate about sharing this is because it is completely possible to use your multidimensional self, use your gifts in your everyday life. And I really feel it's important that we understand as a collective that the multidimensional aspects of us don't need to be separate from who we are and what we do and how we go about our day, even if others don't always understand. So a little bit of background on me is that I had an awakening, I would say really rapid awakening around 2.5 years ago. But I have, in that process of learning and understanding my multidimensional self, been very clearly shown by my guides that it's important for me not to fully step away from the work I was doing before. And the work I was doing before was in marketing. I run a marketing agency, and at the beginning of that, it was really surprising to me that I could be opening all my gifts in the way that I was. And I will go on in a moment and share what those gifts look like and how it opened up for me. But I guess the important kind of thread here is to understand that what I've been shown, I'm here to share, is that it's important to bring all of that multidimensional self into the world now, into the real world, into many places. It's not to be separate. It's not separate spirituality and then the rest. It's about integrating it into your daily life. And that's what this show is all about. And I'm going to start by sharing my journey and being really open, honest, and transparent about the challenges, but also the absolute amazing sides of this transformation I'm still going through, right? It's not ended for me. And for many of us, it will continue. So let me take you back to my original days of waking up. At that time, if you can just imagine, I was actually expecting a baby, and I was growing and scaling up my marketing business. And it felt like a really exciting time. I was really excited for the future, but I didn't really I wasn't really looking spiritually. I wasn't focused on anything like that, really. I was open to spirituality, but it wasn't really a key part of my life at that stage. And so then when my baby arrived, it was like the longest labor anyone's ever known. It was honestly the longest labor. I was in and out of labor for weeks. And because of the challenge of that, I found myself meditating a lot. I found myself just sitting and really kind of being in this space of stillness for a long time, of just being with my body and just allowing that process to unfold. And actually, what my guides have said to me since is that I was in a portal, essentially. And the reason for that birth taking its time in the way that it did is it was allowing me to open up, not only open up to birthing my second child, but also birthing this new, I don't really love saying new version of me, but it is so true. It's almost like it's kind of not new. It's the original version. So all the time, these layers are being kind of removed for the remembrance of actually who I am and all of my multisensory gifts coming online. So this was the beginning. And after that, the birth of my second child, it was like, I would say I didn't come back the same, but in the best way, because I was open to realms and worlds that I could never have believed would be possible prior to that birth. So after having my second, I started to realize that I was able to tap into another realm potentially. I didn't really understand it. I was having these experiences where I was being communicated with by my grandmother. And I started to understand it was my grandmother. And I would ask my mum and I would ask my nan, who's still currently here. So it was my great grandmother in spirit. And I would ask questions like, one of my questions was, did she love bluebells? Because I kept getting these bluebell sign. And I knew my great grandmother, but not really on a deep level because I was quite young when I knew her. So I realized that she was sending me signs. So, the bluebells were clearly a sign. They were her favorite flower, which she used to live in an area in the UK called Kent. And there was a space where she lived, which was beautiful bluebells. And my grandmother was very clear, like this was her favorite flower. So, and that wasn't something I knew. So I understood that I was communicating with her. So it began that way. And that's what started to open me up. And then I really thought, you know what, I really want to go in on this. I started to have memories of when I was a child and started to remember the experiences I had as a child, which potentially, well, maybe not potentially, definitely were not validated in the way that I needed them to be to believe that I was experiencing what I was experiencing when I was younger. And I started to remember that actually all of these things that were going on when I was younger weren't coincidences. I just knew things because I was accessing different realms, different spaces. So that multidimensional self was more alive in me when I was younger. And it's not surprising to know that, right? As we start to go out in the world, as we experience the world as it is, as it has been, then of course you're going to feel like those gifts are confusing. And so I think what happened when I was younger is I just kind of squashed them down and disregarded them. But this opening, this birth of my second child brought them all back online. I started to understand that my intuition was becoming stronger. I was being led by that all the time. Some of the choices I'd made in my life. So, from a career standpoint, prior to having the baby, I decided to start my business. And that was a huge part of my awakening, understanding the power that I had as a manifester, as being able to manifest my reality and create the business in a way that worked for me, for my family. So all of this understanding started to come together at the same time. I started opening up to spirit. I started to understand that I was operating, or my ability to manifest was perhaps different to other people's. And actually, when I really let go and allowed myself to trust and believe in what was possible, things would just happen in the most easeful way. So I started to really try to articulate that, to teach it. I started working with women, helping other mums at that time, because at that time I had a young baby and I was witnessing all of this kind of challenge around me of these women telling me that they felt so stuck in their lives. And so in my early awakening, I start to realize that actually I need to share what's possible with more people, because none of us are stuck. It's just a perception. And when we understand how powerful we actually are, we truly are, then all of these other potential scenarios, timelines, which I understand them now as, but we are the ones creating that, and it's based on our choices. So it's only the stories that we're telling ourselves that hold us where we are, and I was sat in so many rooms with so many mums, and I have so much compassion for this because I felt this way before in my career, before I started my business. And I felt, what if I helped more mums to create a life they wanted for themselves? What if I started to teach how to work with the quantum field, which was then I gained this incredible understanding of that as part of this awakening, and realizing that I've been doing that for years, right? I was very tapped into that energy all my life. Now I understand why, because of my galactic awakening and my galactic background. But it started like that. So I went on this kind of journey to share. And it was interesting because I started to tap more into that space, to work more with the field, and I meditated more. I spent more time with myself. And what happened then was, I would say it was probably, maybe 6 months later, the access to my galactic team opened up. And it began with the Arcturians. So I was in the bath, and for me, the bath is like a portal. When I'm in the bath, I can access much higher realms. And I began tuning in to what I was hoping at the time would be my higher self. I was calling my higher self forwards. And what happened was I was met with an incredible, beautiful blue being. And I was a bit starstruck, if I'm honest. I wasn't sure what was happening. I almost felt a bit, it almost felt like I was, not in a scary way, but I felt like I was almost paralyzed in this moment where I was so focused on what was happening and it was so clear. And the download that was shared with me, the information that was shared with me in that moment was so clear, it was undeniable to me what I was accessing. And the Arcturians came to me and they said that they are my Arcturian guides. I'm getting such chills when I'm saying this to you. So they stepped forwards and they gifted me blue light. And, now they do this on a regular basis. They told me in that moment, if I was to accept the blue light, it could support me from a healing perspective, to open up more and to access more of myself. But I had to choose. And so I did. And I was just, kind of taken back, a bit shocked, really. I wasn't sure what this was about. You don't really expect to meet with a blue being. And I never really expected that. And I'd heard of galactic connections because I'd known people who had them. And now I realize it was no coincidence that I'd met those people who had these galactic and multidimensional connections. But I didn't expect that would be me. And so I started to develop this relationship with my Arcturian guides, and they still are my strongest and clearest guides when I need guidance in my business, when I need guidance in my life, when I just need guidance, sometimes when I need guidance for other people that step into my world. I bring the guidance through from primarily the Arcturians. I also connect with a number of different beings, and as I go through these episodes, perhaps I'll share some of the different connections that I've made over time and how I experience them differently. But my Arcturian guides, they have really helped me to, and what they share as their role is to help me to articulate this experience that I'm having as a human here now, but as a multidimensional being here now. And they have been guiding me very, very strongly on my path, and probably why we're having this conversation here now in this episode is thanks to their guidance. So that's how it started. And it was really unexpected. And from there, my gifts just started opening more and more. And I began, from that point in time, I started wanting to deepen that conversation with them, because I would find, like, if I connected with them, for example, when I was in the bath, I couldn't always remember what had happened. So I would remember elements of it, but I would go so high, almost so far up into higher realms when I'm connecting in that way, that sometimes when I tried to bring the information back, it was almost like a dream-like state. It was interesting. And it can still feel like that sometimes for me. So I began connecting and then writing down what I'd experienced. And I realized that from there, I would just be automatic writing. Like, it would just be flowing through my hand. Sometimes it would come through as just, writing text. Other times it would just come through in light codes. And they would never be super clear, but I would be drawing these shapes and these symbols, and I didn't really know what they meant or why that was coming through me. So I would tune in and ask, these symbols, what do they mean? And they would speak to me about, these are light codes, this is frequency, the connection that I make with my guides is not always brought through in human language as we understand it. It can also be brought through in light codes. And from there, I started to bring those light codes through kind of writing them, but it would interchange between text and light code. So I realized I was channeling my guides on the paper. And that was amazing. And I did that for a period of time. And I'd have like streams and streams of text coming through me about what I'm here for, why it's important that I speak about it, why it's so important that I'm here now, and also to help me to shape my path. Because what I've always found really so confusing, and anybody who's resonating or understanding their galactic connections and has had a similar galactic and very rapid awakening, you may have experienced the same thing. For me, at the beginning, it was like, why am I experiencing this? And what am I supposed to do with it? Now, having a marketing business, it felt really, and it has done for quite a long time, and there are still moments where it feels like there's tension between what I know and what I'm out there doing, and the types of clients I'm working with, which are not necessarily spiritual clients or clients who are open spiritually or even aware of what's possible for all of us, right? So, and I had a long time of feeling quite lost around what am I here to do, even though they were showing me, even though they were very clear to me that being part of my marketing business is still really valid and relevant for me because it's really important for my path. And this is not everyone's path. And this is what's important to know. You need to tune into what's right for you. For me, I know my path, and they've shared very, very clearly, is to be a bridge between worlds. So it's about all the time bringing this multidimensional self, this multidimensional way of being into business, which is, is a learning curve, which is also why it's really cool that I can create these episodes, because what I'm really going to enjoy is documenting that journey with you. So that's how I woke up. That was my awakening. And from there, I've been continuing to understand what's possible with my gifts. So since after automatic writing, what I then began to do, one day I was about to get into the bath, my portal. And you know how I mentioned when I go up that high, sometimes I don't always retain all the information because it's quite hard to bring it all back. I decided, and it was just a thing that I just randomly did. I just decided to start recording on my phone as I got into the bath. And I had no expectation of what would happen. And I began to record. And when I got out the bath and I listened to what had come through me and I just allowed myself to speak, I was blown away with what I was experiencing. I was like channeling for about 30, 40 minutes. And I was speaking as my guides, and the guidance that was coming through was clearer and more direct than I could bring it through in written form. And yeah, it's been phenomenal. I've been able to use that information that I bring through not only for myself, but also I've been able to help others with that same information. So if I'm in that level of channel, which some will term a trance channel, for example, I can bring the information through directly from my Arcturian guides. Now that has been a wild ride. It's been so exciting. At the beginning, it was more challenging to bring that level of information through because it was quite a full-on process in my body. But over time, I find it easier and easier. So it's almost become second nature for me to be able to tune in to my guides. They also speak to me sometimes through audio. I just hear them in and around day to day. But when I go that deep and I channel, I can bring through a depth that is beyond my human experience, really. And the wisdom that comes through me has been profoundly helpful to me. It has really been life-changing. It's helped me to make certain decisions. It's helped me to step out of my logical brain at times. It's helped me to see the bigger picture. So often when I, in my human experience, feel a bit lost or confused. And yeah, it's just changed my life. And it's been beautiful to be able to also access that for other people. So that's really how it's evolved. And that's why I've stepped in to share more, because the next question for me, once I've really started to establish what I was able to do and who I was being now, what's possible, was how am I supposed to use all these multidimensional skills, the access to these realms, my intuition and sometimes telepathy, these kind of skills coming online. What do I do with this? What do we do with this as a collective? How do we take that wisdom? How do we infuse it into our current lives? And the communication that I've had from my guides has been that we are now on a very clear journey as humanity, as a collective. Doesn't matter where you live or who you are. We are all moving to a trajectory where we will be operating from higher dimensions. We will start to awaken to perhaps some people might term it as a new human, but my guides kind of speak to it as a higher dimensional being. So we're in that process of elevating beyond the 3D, hence what this episode is called. We are in that process of elevating beyond the 3D. And we are learning to be multidimensional. And this is a journey for each and every one of us. The connection I have with my guides is to support this transition. It was shared with me, and maybe some of you listening to this might resonate, that I have had many multidimensional experiences, many experiences on different planes. And it is my role to bring that wisdom and that understanding and that guidance here now for us to learn how to elevate beyond the 3D. So as we go through these episodes, I will share more on how we access that, what's possible, how this stuff works, my own journey, and how we also use that in our life and business. Because it's the fusion of the two that is so important. What my guides speak about is it's great to have access to higher realms, but what the role really is, and they show it to me like a big beam of light coming down and striking the ground, is taking that wisdom and bringing it here now so that we can help raise the vibration of this planet collectively. It's actually not about me. It's actually not about each one of us. It's about the collective impact. But what I've been shared very clearly, and this has been guidance that has been consistent throughout my awakening journey, is not to underestimate the power of the individual within this. So each person, each one of us, and this is the words that they use with me, each one of us lights the grid. That's what they speak to. Each one of us lights the grid, and each one of us that turns on our light starts to inspire the next person, and it goes like that. It's not actually about, a big bang moment. This is what I understand, that my guides tell me. It's not this kind of big extravagant moment which opens us all up in one instant. It's an incremental process, and everybody's coming at the point where they're ready for that. Not everybody's going to be ready at the same time. There are certain people that are going to be slightly ahead, but we're not ahead really. It's just awakening quicker, open, easier, more aware of the multidimensional self. Because I firmly believe if my experiences had not happened to me personally, I would find it harder to resonate with this. Once you start to understand your own capabilities and question it, then you start to look for the information, and that's when you can be supported on the journey. So everybody's got their own path. Everybody's timeline of waking up is different, but we're all headed in the same direction. And that's what my guides speak to. But this new version, this higher dimensional earth that we're moving towards, we're in pretty much, it's got to be created by us. We are responsible for that, in the kindest possible way and without kind of pressure or judgment. But we are here to create that, and that's what we signed up for. And I've very much been shown that was what I was signed up for. So it hasn't been right for me to walk away from the business that at certain points felt really 3D, if you understand me. It felt really quite a dense environment to be in. But it's important to infuse the multidimensional, the higher dimensional, the light into the places that feel darker, the places that feel more dense in energy, and to bring everything up incrementally over time. And, none of us know the speed that will go. It's not based on one person. It's based on an individual and collective input. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'm going to be bringing more episodes where I speak more deeply about how to infuse your multidimensional self into your reality and evolve beyond the 3D.